Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome from a very cold London to our Amber and BGA Business School Leaders Summit. Today we've selected what I feel are probably the three biggest issues of our time facing us in business education today, and they are innovation, diversity, partnerships, future knowledge and skills, and sustainability. And I'm delighted that to lead the insight and discussion, we've got senior executives from some of the world's leading multinationals and also senior executives from some of the world's most innovative, smaller organizations. We have been universally positive throughout the COVID crisis, and I think that's reflected in some of the research that we've done with your students. For example, we did some research early on in the pandemic of 750 MBA students, and 84% of them said they were either positive or very positive about the efforts that you're making to put on good programs, and that's despite social distancing and despite all the complications of COVID. And I'm delighted to say that's been seen in our own results at Amber and BGA. Today's a big day for us. It's also our annual AGM, and it's the third birthday of BGA. And it's a great pleasure to be able to present to the board a little bit later today and announce record financial results for Amber and BGA. It's the highest surplus we've had in our 54-year history, and also record growth of BGA. So the Amber network has grown to 291 schools, getting ever closer to our 300 exclusive target. And thanks to your flexibility, moving from physical accreditation visits to virtual accreditation visits, only 2 out of 62 re-accreditations were delayed into this year. So thank you, that's quite remarkable. Equally remarkable, the BGA network has gone from no schools this day 3 years ago to 195 member schools. And if we think that 23 of those 36 months were at a time of COVID when we weren't even able to meet a single customer or potential customer face-to-face, that growth is quite remarkable. And we feel that with BGA, it's the right product, the right brand at the right time, particularly with its focus on responsible management and practical impact. So finally, in this opening, I'd like to thank our 20 chairs and speakers for their time and the insights they're going to share with us, and our 5 sponsors, Barco, Incendi, Cortex, McGraw-Hill, and Wharton Research Data Services. So all that leaves for me now to do is for you to stand by so that you can welcome Simone from Barco, who'll chair our first session, which is Innovation for Success in Business Education. And I'll see you all later. Bye now.
Love to be together actually in a lovely location in London, to come together. That was everybody's dream, I guess. Again and again, we have now to be together virtually. So thanks to the great team at Amber and BGA, they made it again possible actually that we can do that, and that we are still actually benefiting from the tremendous experience of all the speakers. My name is Simone Hammer. I'm leading today the panel about innovation for success in business education. Of course, the 2 last years even have been difficult for everybody. We had to change lots of habits, but there is a lot of positive things, not only positive tests, right? It's also positive things that come in. And as we have heard actually in the introduction, students are really positive, which is great. We will discuss a lot about innovation, what business schools can do actually to prepare for the future, to embrace what is coming in a very positive way. But I don't want to give you too many insights because the interesting thing will be the discussion. So my name is Simone Hammer. I am the head of marketing for Barco, one of the sponsors of AMBA and BGA. We have been working together for a long, long time already. I have been with Barco for 2 years, and we are commercializing a platform, a virtual engagement platform for training and teaching, which is called WeConnect. This is all I want to say, and with that, I would really like the panelists now to introduce themselves, and I give the word to Maria. Please, could you please tell us a little bit more about your career? Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Good morning, everyone. A pleasure to be here. My name is Maria Axente. I work in PwC UK. And for the last 5 years, I've been working on responsible AI, which means that we aim to bring all the experience PwC has in professional services and business acumen into understanding how to manage both benefits and risk posed by a technology as novel, as emerging, and as unknown as AI, being able to make sense of the organizational challenges that need to be put in place. In parallel with that, I'm very active in the AI UK ecosystem, contributing to public policy, regulation, research in the area, also around the world, especially with a global organization like UNICEF and ITU and UN. And lastly, part of my career, I hold an MBA, and AMBA is dear to my heart because I was, during my student years, involved with AMBA. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward for the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. Impressive. Thank you. With that, I give it on to Tiffany. Tiffany, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you're doing?
Hi, I'm Tiffany. I work for IKEA, an Ingka group on the retail side. So the part of the company that sells the furniture, not the part of the company that makes the furniture. I'm responsible for a third of the global innovation portfolio. So we have 3 business development and innovation leaders who are responsible for the innovation within the retail side. So I manage sustainability, digital, human resources, and the financial innovation for Ingka Group. To being in IKEA, I have a master's in education, and I was actually a captain in the US Army.
Thank you, Captain. Okay, and with that, I pass it on to Mika. Mika, may I ask you to introduce yourself as well, last but not least.
Thank you, Simone, and pleasure to be here. My name is Mika Makitalo, CEO at HappyOrNot. We are a customer experience solution. You might know us from the 4 smileys you might see on Heathrow or other airports or restaurants or retail store. We enable our customers to improve their operations through data they are seeing there. I've been now at HappyOrNot a bit more than 1 year. Before that, 10 years in a software company called M-Files, grew globally, and 10 years before that in the Finnish government. And have a PhD on industrial engineering and management.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm really, really glad to have you all with me here on this panel about success in business education. And let's hop off actually with some of the questions. I also would like to do some housekeeping that I haven't done in the beginning. If you have questions here in the audience, please don't hesitate on the Swapcard platform to put in your questions. We will have 5 to 10 minutes at the end of this session where we will read out the questions and ask our panelists to answer those. So don't hesitate to key in your questions. So with the first question that I would like to direct first of all to Tiffany, but of course everybody is welcome actually to comment on that, is do you think that this year has inspired radical innovation? I mean, you are responsible for a big part of the innovation at IKEA retail. Sustainability is a big. I have read that through your bio, and it's very important. So, how do you see that? 2021 was a year of innovation, radical innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think that I need to be the one to say that the world changed very quickly. But I think that something that was quite comforting for me, at least, was it felt that in many ways retail caught up with the hearts and minds of where people have been for a long time. Namely, I think that it has been sitting with people for a long time that sustainability is important, and many people want to do the right thing in your everyday life, and you just don't know how. Actually, like, most people want to be more sustainable, and we've actually found throughout many years that the challenge to being more sustainable isn't necessarily people's desire, it's that they don't necessarily know how. So I think that this past year has actually accelerated the ways in which we as a company have been able to think of how can we facilitate the process, what can we do, and we know as well that the world, the climate is changing and it's becoming less and less habitable for us here. So we actually really need to act fast, and that's put a lot of pressure on us as a company, and I think many other companies, to think if we are to change the way that we operate by 2030, we need to start taking action now, which has been, for me, really exciting. And I hope that it has been exciting for others as well.
Okay. Do you have any examples? I give that also to Mika, to Maria. Any examples of innovation that you have seen, that you have done yourself, maybe, or some colleagues have done, or friends, that really inspired you over the last year, the last 2 years, let's say? Could you think of anything?
Yeah, I can start, and let me start first saying indeed what Tiffany mentioned, that the pandemic has indeed accelerated some of the changes, especially in retail. We see that consumers, of course, were not visiting the brick and mortar store, but indeed the online experience is more important, where we see that where customer experience needs to be covering all the channels where companies are operating. And many companies thought that, yeah, let's consider those in the future. But of course, during the pandemic, online was pretty much the main channel for many companies. That really made big changes in retail. And of course, the obvious climate change impact on consumers' thinking, of course, is changing the market as well. For us, the pandemic has been, I think, good time to really stop thinking that what is the winning strategy, what we should redefine. Is this the core customer group that is the ideal for us? What data is telling? We've been say building a more clear focus what we are doing, and we are, for example, doing a lot of business with retail. So those basic questions, how we are adding more value there, and then of course internally thinking that by combining data, by presenting more insightful data, by partnering with other vendors for retail, we can add something that has never seen before. So it has been a good time, really, pandemic, to be thinking that how we'll grow after when the pandemic impact is over, and how we deliver these innovations to market to really show value that has not been there earlier.
Excellent. Okay. So, I mean, I think lots of companies also try to, well, run faster even, and this, what you're saying, Mika, was really an opportunity. And some companies have taken that opportunity to step back and think, analyze, as you say. I mean, lots of data is available. Others have been continuing to run. And then we see, actually, I mean, you can't get exhausted very quickly, Maria, anything to add? Any examples that have inspired you on that, on
Yes, well,
innovation?
not so more inspiring in innovation, in more of a finally something has happened that we've been preaching for a long time. So my background is in digital strategy and transformation, and for a long time we have been preaching to our clients they have to start digitizing their businesses. Keep in mind, PwC works with large organization, global organization, where the scale and complexity is everything. What we have seen in pandemic is a run for life, pretty much, because before the pandemic, I think there was a room for companies to cover the lack of digitization and complement it with people's skills. But now there was on one hand, it was us working from home. And then the huge opportunity to capitalize on that. First of all, making sure there is an infrastructure for people to be able to work from home. Many companies wouldn't have that. But secondly, with the view of the economic uncertainty that follows this pandemic, is the desire to find and optimize the processes, and digitization done seriously from the smallest element of replacing repetitive human labor with solution, all the way down to really migrating to cloud, creates the absolute magical platform for more innovation, for power up innovation. The innovation that we have been seeing quite a lot in the last 7 years in the field of AI. There's a lot of excitement because now we have a better infrastructure, data, computing power, and interest from the businesses to invest in it, but that cannot be realized if we don't have an infrastructure. So to me, that's the big winning point, the fact that we more likely see now some of the exciting bits we've seen on the sides, and innovation that was somehow peripheral to many organizations taking the stage and being able to really drive transformation, and actually see when what happens when you move from innovation into mainstream and to really create a sustainable and profound impact.
Interesting. Thank you, Maria. Do you also see, question to everybody, that this innovation is more happening in collaboration, or that collaboration, despite the physical distance, actually has been reinforced actually to get to this innovation? I once was told, creativity, and we will talk a little bit about creativity, comes, and innovation comes out of because it's urgent. You need some urgency, actually. So, which means that wars, for instance, are very good for innovation because people become really creative, right? So, in France, our president said that we were in war, but that was a very something completely specific. But how do you see that actually? More collaboration? Did people actually come together, and did we become more creative?
I laugh a little bit when you say like war inspires creativity, because I can say that soldiers are some of the most creative people I've ever met in my life. But I actually think that this pandemic has sparked a lot of collaboration, because as we touched upon a little bit, now with digital, in the beginning at least, we kind of lost our work-life boundaries. Like meetings started to creep a little bit because, at least in my experience, people knew you were home. They knew you had nowhere to go. So all of a sudden, the Teams meeting calls would happen earlier and earlier, and you would get calls later and later because where should you go? And people can see that you're online. So if they have a quick question, they might just call you. Way that didn't really happen before the pandemic. I know at least my time was incredibly structured. I had a lot of meetings, formal meetings throughout the day, and formal time for collaborating with colleagues. And additionally, we talk about creativity a little bit. Boredom drives creativity. It's just a fact. Boredom drives creativity. So when we're kind of sitting in our spaces throughout the world all together at once, going crazy, looking at the same wall over and over and over again, it has sparked something. And people, even though we're far apart, we're closer than ever because we are all sitting in front of our computers just a click away from each other. So I've actually seen that this past 2 years, actually, I've had more collaboration with my colleagues than I would have had when I maybe would have needed 2 weeks time to get on their calendar, or they would have needed vice versa 2 weeks time to get on mine.
Excellent. Okay. More collaboration. Mika, how do you see it? More collaboration, less collaboration?
Yeah, more collaboration, a bit different. Definitely with Tiffany there that yeah, this has sparked a lot of innovation, and I go back to the topic that there was time to think that what we want to do, where's the focus, and the changes in the market are also the ones that are enticing innovation, because when you see changes in a marketplace, then the ones that are innovating are winning, and the ones that think that hey, the world is not changing, let's continue with the same paradigm we've been working and successful for 50 years, they of course are the one that gets beaten. So it's also how we read the market and how we are better. So it's quite inspiring thing that how we will win in the market. And there from the focus, it's internal work, internal partner work, plus of course with external companies that hey, with that company we could be adding so much value for the customers. So I see that there's been a lot of that, and of course since there is no travel, you can have meetings way more often and more. So therefore there's been a lot of cooperation, but of course have to say that I do miss those physical brainstorming sessions. So from that point of view, even though we have Miro and all the good tools for online sessions, but of course it doesn't beat physical planning meetings.
Mm-hmm. What's your opinion, Maria? Would you join your colleagues here on the panel?
I'm probably a little bit more less optimistic. I would say definitely more collaboration, because working virtually has offered possibility of people located in different parts of the world to contribute and be part of various conversation, various projects. That's definitely open up more opportunities for people to be part of conversation that otherwise were limited because of their geographical location. In terms of innovation, I'm a little bit cautious. We definitely had to innovate because we innovated because we had to. We are pushed towards finding ways of working together and make that work being efficient and exciting. But the reality is that come with a cost. The fact that we, as Mika said, we are missing each other. You know, the best ideas comes when you come together with like-minded people, and it's almost like an artistic project, and it has been difficult to find the same excitement while talking with your team in front of a screen. So I would say I'm very much looking forward for us to start, working together in person and to be able to find that. And we should hold this very dear to our hearts, because there's something that technology will never be able to replace. That sparkle of genius, that passion that happens when we are together physically. And as I said, yes, innovation has happened in other direction. So in the technology field, like more collaboration with startups and creating ecosystems rather than a company trying to replicate and build everything from the scratch, and opens up the possibility for companies like Mika's to partner with larger organizations. So from that extent, I think it was highly beneficial. But I will remain more cautious and say let's come back together and start innovating, because I think a lot of people are hungry for working together and for creating together.
Exactly. And I think the business school leaders that are listening to us are of the same opinion. Most of them have, of course, reopened the campuses as well. Maybe one other question. You were mentioning, all of you in some kind were mentioning the lack of predictability of the future, right? That was maybe the biggest learning for everybody, right? That we were doing. I remember have been working for GE for 15 years. We did 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, sometimes even 10-year planning some time ago. Now this has completely. Business schools have adapted their programs to really actually teach also how to navigate when there is no predictability. What do you think are businesses set up to survive in the growing deluge of challenges, especially when it's impossible to predict what's around the corner? What about the business? And then we will talk a little bit about the business schools. What is needed to get business leaders, future business leaders, to navigate enterprises and companies, if they are big or small, actually during the storms that might still come? I don't know who wants to kick it off. Mika, maybe.
Yeah, I guess I think the challenges are always out there. This is, of course, being agile to react. And I have to say that even before pandemic, if one felt that our business is stable and there are no challenges and everything it can be seen in a spreadsheet for 5 years, I think then one is not running enough, or innovating enough. There should be challenges. There should be problems to solve every week. Not saying that, hey, let's be let's be creating problems, but I think it's also this is market economy all about that. Who are the ones that can innovate and be agile and win the game, and who are the ones that are failing delivering value for the customers of losing in the market. So I think it's nothing has changed from that point of view. But of course, this the pandemic was say big impact for many, and of course certain government regulations of course put too many businesses in difficult position. But for those that were not impacted by the restrictions, it was a time for how quickly they can react and or adapt to the situation. I think there's nothing there. It is just measuring how agile the companies are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I completely echo that as well. I have had my own company, and I was very often asked, so what's your plans for 5 years from now? And of course, I said, we have a plan. We cannot not have a plan because we have to raise money, right? And that's where we have to present the plan. But I really hope that the reality will be very different from our plan, and that we have been able to adapt actually to the new reality, right? So I think that's exactly what you are saying as well. You need to stay agile, and you need to feel the threat also from other market forces that are coming in, either if it is competition or other things, right?
And if I may, of course, it goes back to the organization culture. Those that are heavy top-down led, where the innovation is done in the management team in their biannual sessions, they are of course the ones that are failing, versus the organization that empowers all employees thinking, acting, making decisions. So this of course has made that the companies that are agile and employees feel passion and they have the authority to make choices, they are the ones, of course, doing much better.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, Tiffany, anything about the empowerment this in your company, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I would actually build on that culture piece and organization piece, because I think although we can't predict external factors, I mean, nobody could have predicted the pandemic. Maybe somebody could have, but the vast majority of us didn't. I actually think that it's quite simple when you think about it organizationally. I mean, the future is here. It's the young people, and it's a little bit of what I said in the beginning. The pandemic has forced us to catch up to what was already in the hearts and minds of consumers. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was the lone millennial sitting in a big corporate leadership gathering where I heard a keynote speaker talking about how to reach millennials, and it was just so off. And I think that, in the retail world, we were surprised by the fact that people want to consume secondhand, and that now we're facing a generation of non-consumers when these non-consumers were in the companies already. And a little bit, as Mika said, if you empower your organization, if you listen to people, you have the future of consumers within your grasp. And it goes as well with equality, diversity, and inclusion. I mean, it's a proven fact that the companies that are the most inclusive tend to be the companies that are the most innovative. And if you have, for instance, an innovation team that is largely men, you're missing a massive opportunity because 80% of the world's consumers are actually women. So despite the fact that we are roughly 50-50, it is women who are the purchasing power most times in their households. So if you look at the statistics of the people who are consuming and their behaviors and actually listen to them, the future is already at hand. And I think that that is something where people who are in business school right now, who are current consumers, future consumers, they actually have a right to be heard and to have a hand in innovating the future. And the companies who aren't set up to listen to them, who are too top heavy, who are too focused on seniority and years in the business, those are the ones who will falter in the end, because future without those who are driving the future.
Very, 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 very well. Yes, I completely agree. I would like to continue on that also, to jump a little bit on what do you see here in the panel necessary for future leaders that are today at business schools. As you said, Tiffany, they are consumers, of course, they can interact. But if they lead and they get out of their business school, they have their degrees. What is the value that they should create, the new value they should create for their organizations in terms of research? The business schools, and also with the education actually of these future business leaders. Maria, maybe you want to comment on this one.
I would say that they need to learn how to build agility and resilience. I think I love what Mika said about agility, but that works for small and medium enterprises. When you start scaling and you have complexity, preserving that agility is really difficult if you don't have a solid foundation, technology foundation. And I think I'm a bit biased, of course, because I've been working in technology for a while. But I feel that the resilience would to be found in technology, right? There's a lot of data available out there, and now we have the tools to be able to be a bit more predictable. And that's the hardcore of what AI is doing at the moment, is being able to predict future trends, preferences, and what have you, and as a result, create a bit more internal preparedness for what's coming. And I think, if anything, 10 years ago, I've graduated my MBA. And one of the things that I find a little bit frustrated is the fact that technology is still treated as a nice to have. Well, in reality, technology is a strategic asset. And when I say technology, I include data as well. So how do we focus their business minds, not only on what happens in society, in trends, and how to create cultures, how to lead, but how to understand the role of technology in disrupting all this? Because what we are saying more and more, and with an accelerated speed, is how technology transforms society from macro level to micro level. Of the decisions are being delegated to self-learning algorithms, and as a result, we are rushing towards automation. So how can we understand the role of technology and the relationship between humans and technology, and being able to extract the most benefits and keep technology aligned to human goals? To me, it's critical, and encourage all the business schools to start offering more AI in business courses that I think are absolutely critical for the future business leads, and being able to work closer with technologies like data scientist and engineer in understanding the nature of this technology, and being able to innovate with it and grasp the competitive advantage they are looking to build.
So you say, Maria, you take technology as a foundation, if I use your words, right? There is certainly research going on also in business schools about that. I think companies are reacting now on that as well. Do you feel that business schools have tailored or have changed their curricula actually to build that knowledge, that foundational knowledge into their curricula actually? Do you see that, or would you say it's just it's a recommendation that you give?
I would say more of it's a recommendations from what we have seen. There are some steps and business schools that have done that. I'm not gonna name anyone, but I think there is room for all the business school to incorporate that and to work closer with the industry that has a lot of knowledge and start preparing the next generation of leaders.
Okay, thank you. Mika,
Yeah,
you want to comment
definitely.
on that one?
Yeah, definitely. Technology is the key foundation for everything in the future. Everything that can digitalize will digitalize. So we, of course, this trend of data and technology, of course, will grow, and therefore it would be so important that all can operate with technology. And then also what Maria said, I think talking about understanding, that would be something I'd also emphasize, and it would be also thinking other ways of studying and not doing and reading and studying what everybody else is studying. I remember when my chief product officer was visiting the developers studying their masters, and they were asking that, hey, what they should be studying. And they were of course asking that what is some of the piece of technology they should be focusing, AI or something else. And the reply was selling, communications. So I think that is so far more valuable for a developer understanding that how sales works or reading psychology. That is far more valuable. And there also is role for innovation. If developers understand more psychology or selling or customers, or business schools students understand more AI, technology, uh, you name it. I think that is where the value comes from, where you can innovate something, create something that has not been there earlier, and really understanding other areas and businesses.
Thank you. Okay, yeah. So the basics, technology, but also the other basics, right? The human basics. Okay. I'm looking at time as well, so I will advance a little bit here, and we have loads of things actually to discuss. One of my favorite questions, always, or the favorite topics with innovation is failure. So I know that culturally speaking, we have a very different approach to failure. So just wanted to understand, is there a value in failure for you? Maybe starting with you, Tiffany, and how can we mitigate risk actually when we have to fail or when we will fail? Because failing, we will definitely fail from time to time, right?
Yeah. Yes, I think that there is great value in failure. Success is a terrible teacher, and actually, in IKEA and Ingka, we began to see that a little bit pre-pandemic. So, about 3.5 years ago, we started to see IKEA has always had, for the past 75 years, IKEA has always had an upward trajectory of profit, and we started to see that to plateau. And the thing is, I don't think that it's surprising to the world that IKEA should have shifted its business model. But in IKEA, when a business had continued to grow steadily for 75 years, like I said, success is a very bad teacher. So we actually started to shift our ways of thinking pre-pandemic around 3 years ago and started to boost innovation in that sense. And and I would say that there's always room for improvement in how you approach failure in your company. But I think that having that psychological safety atmosphere and empowering people to be brave enough to embrace their failure, to be humble, is really key. And that mitigates risk, because the thing is that if you're afraid to embrace your failure, you're going to hide your failure, and then that's going to create a snowball effect of bigger and bigger failures. So I think that just creating a culture, leaders can create a culture where you can say, I messed up, this is what happened, and this is what I'm going to do to fix it. And this is something that I also experienced in the military. That's something that taking accountability for your actions is very important, and that we've tried to also foster within IKEA in this new shift that we've had in the past 3.5 years is a culture of accountability and a culture of embracing failure and then moving on. Because without those pivots, you can't actually learn anything new.
I would also even say we have been talking about collaboration. It's actually closing the circle towards collaboration because asking for help if you're stuck, right? And creating actually that culture of trust in your organization where you can actually raise your hand and say, well, I don't know, or this went wrong, what shall I do? And then looking out for more collaboration, I think is something that is really important next to failure. Maria, any thoughts actually from your side on failure and how to
I
mitigate it?
Yes, I would say that no failure is not an option in the AI world. In fact, the failures that we have seen so far have been extremely useful to point out the dark side of AI and the fact that we know so very little about this technology, and there are plenty of unintended consequences we need to be preparing. And one of the key narrative around responsible AI is, in fact, the risk associated with it and being able to identify them and create the right controls that are embedded in your current operation to address them. But nevertheless, when companies will get in that position to have robust management of the AI risk, there will be um, um, areas that will not be covered. Therefore, how do you get prepared for mini crisis? I think it's the same mindset that exists in cyber. When something, crisis happened, you are able to very quickly pull the resources together to remediate the impact. And what I think we need to be doing is being able to work with engineers upfront in the design stages of AI solutions, to be able to iterate what failures look like and how to create that mindset that acknowledge for negative impact, not only the benefits. That doesn't exist at the moment. A lot of the data scientists and computers uh, 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 um, uh, engineers around the world have been educated under the mantra, can we build it? And that gave us Silicon Valley. But now we have to acknowledge there is a profound impact with those novel technology, which will trigger failure in many cases, and sometimes critical types of failure with loss of lives. Therefore, we need to have a higher degree of responsibility and acknowledgement of these sources of failure to start preparing for it.
Yeah. Thank you. Very, very interesting. Thank you for your insights. I'm looking again at time. We have a couple of questions that have come in. Mika, do you want to comment? I guess as the CEO of HappyOrNot, you certainly have an opinion on failure and the value of failure. Anything to add to what was already said before?
Maybe quickly, yeah. If there's no failures, I don't think there's enough drive for growth. Failures is something. This goes back to the organizational culture that it allows failing. Failing is good. It was meaning that we had a hypothesis, it didn't work, so we learned. So it is a part of, especially if companies are driving future via growth hacking. It's through data understanding and unlocking growth.
Okay, thank you. So I have a couple of questions. Let's see. We have got 2 minutes left. Well, there's lots of things still to discuss. So I've got somebody saying from Mark. I'm a program director in a business school in the UAE, and we have management programs which include AI. So I guess it's a question also to you, Maria. Technology and innovation. A challenge we have is the gap between the best practices and what is being applied in the local market. Implementation varies tremendously in growing markets. What is the panel's opinion on this topic? Very wide topic. We could actually expand this panel discussion for another hour now, I think. Maria, do you have anything to add here?
Definitely, we see this all the time. Being a global organization, the fact that we have different culture context and different use cases, industries, and regulation that will impact how applications are being designed and implemented. In the same time, we will have different operational challenges that will again put a pressure on how AI is being governed. But I think there is a huge opportunity because we don't have best practices generalized, or we don't have many companies that could boost with their best practices. I think it's a huge opportunity for future leaders to come and lead that change in a towards the stabilization of those best practices. And when I say this, is like one of my slight frustration in the world of responsible AI is that the lack of acknowledgement of the impact of specialists in business and operations over the success of responsible AI. So we need that message sent across to business schools and say business leaders can have that impact in creating best practices that can be shared globally. Therefore, is an opportunity for the business schools to train the future leaders towards in that direction.
Okay. Thank you, Maria. So I have to be cautious of time. I would really like to thank everybody. I would love to spend more time, and I hope next year we can all meet in London and have a glass of something actually together and chat and chit chat and continue these discussions. So thank you so much for your valuable insights. I hope for the audience you have enjoyed as much as myself to be here with us. Please know that the next session is starting in 15 minutes, so please be back soon. So we've got a little break. Thanks everybody. Thanks to Amba actually for driving this and giving these insights and allowing us to comment on all of these very interesting topics. I also would like to say we have just published Barco Business Education Trends Report that you can download here from the website. So if you're interested, you can do so as well, which is echoing a lot of the things that we have heard today. So it's a topic that is really very close to my heart. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day and a very healthy 2022 to everybody.